deadly deceiver, and he works inside of you. Well, he festers in the darkness and the depths of your mind. He can deaden all of your mental senses. Leave you deaf, dumb, and blind. He can make you weak, make you sleep, make you do anything evil you can find. He is a deadly deceiver, and he works through your mind. Well, he can use his quiet power to persuade you to sin, and all it takes is just a whisper or mere suggestion from him. And that's my friend, that's where his dirty work in. Oh, he just sets his plan in motion, but you carry it to the end. His craft is in your weakness. The only reason he exists, every time you give in to his lies, and you resist. But don't think that you're the only victim of his sick disease, like a puppet on a string. The whole world dances to the wicked song that he sings. Now lying is his specialty. His expertise. The truth, he don't need no proof. He's got the power to deceive. The whole world has become his workshop, and he's got harm in the game to him. The religion, science, or truth, nothing is sacred. No, nothing is sacred to him. Whenever man is straight, you can bet he'll let the way. Oh, can't you see? He was that snake there in the garden, the one that tricked you around and deep. He's alive behind the clock, and that image on the wall. Everyone would you believe? He's the piece of a revelation, being not mistaken, the real Satan. That's him. Don't waste your time in cursing you. He wants to you a bit of good, 'cause his only life is in your mind. It's always understood. If you would just start believing in truth and reality, he's a life away. But as long as you keep using him, you'll keep using him. You decide. Does he go or does he stay? He is the justified. What's up for the justified? He is the justified. What's up for the justified? He is the justified. What's up for the justified?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thank you for joining us this morning for All Things Human. We just listened to this portion of December 26, 1986 lecture from Imam Muhammad. Sounds like it was in Chicago. I have no other details other than that, but it had that Chicago feel to it. And we're going to play, the balance of that particular clip. I don't know if it ends in about another half hour, meaning an additional half hour, but we'll play the balance of it next week, inshallah. And we'll do that. So what we're going to do right now is continue on as to where we are. Since this is Wednesday, we give it if there's an opportunity for anyone to have a question or comment on Blog Talk, now's your chance. Also on Facebook Live, YouTube, if you can type in your query and the like, you can do that. You'll have that opportunity, as we do, for the limited time before we take off. Any? All right, well, I'm going. I believe I have the the slide piece figured out. I just can't go to full screen with my PowerPoint here on my side of it. So that means I have to keep it open and then go from there. Let's pick up where we ended last week. We're at the point now where we're actually talking about the Dajjal with more detail. And the Dajjal, we know from the reports of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the one-eyed, right? This began some weeks ago, some months ago. We're continuing with it. Michael means God with us. Some of you remember this character from Monsters Inc. God with us. His name is Mike, which is short for Michael, but it means God with us. And for us, he's there. Well, for the movie itself, he's a one-eyed monster. And for us, the one-eyed is the Dajjal. We pointed out how a couple of weeks ago in the finale of The Masked Singer, the first and second, meaning the winner and the runner-up, what one was the bull character and the other is the heart, and the heart just happened to have one eye. So it's a heart with one eye. Let me say this, easy read off the top of it is it's a heart with one eye, right? So a person whose desire is just one thing. A person whose desire is one thing. And also intellect is the servant of interest. Your heart is what you're interested in, right? Interest is this intellect is the servant of interest. So the heart is the interest. The eye is actually a type of the intellect. In the center of the eye, what do you call that part of the center of the eye? It's called the pupil. It's called the pupil, right? Pupil is another name for student, right? So what you're looking for, you do research, right? You do research. What do you do research with? With your eyes, effectively. And then also the term talib itself, talib, which means student, it also means desire. It also means desire or something that you want, right? So if your heart is focused only on one thing, you're not focused on two things, you don't have a balanced approach to it, then you're under the influence, and you yourself become a Dajjal in that respect. So this heart symbolizing that, and again the symbolism that puts these spikes. The heart's supposed to be soft and appealing and attractive, but in reality, you have those spikes there. That's dangerous, right? That's dangerous. That's threatening, etc. And it's doubling those. It's sending a double message. It's sending a double message, but actually one message for those who understand. So the whole one-eye thing is well established in this society. Some of the others that I've thought about between last week and this, you have Nick Fury, that character, that Samuel L. Jackson character. Nick Fury, he's the guy that I don't know where he is right now. I don't know if he really actually got killed off or what have you, but he was the one that was running the Marvel Universe characters operation, right? So he's like the overseer, the supervisor of the whole thing. So as Nick Fury, he also plays a similar role in Triple X, right? Similar role in Triple X, but the whole one eye thing is there, right? And I'm reminded how Pirates, for some reason, having the Pirates patch, you Raider fans will know what I'm talking about. That Pirates patch is also something that is uh, established iconically in our culture as well. And then the Kingsmen, which they have a later, what do you call it, prequel version of the Kingsmen that's out right now. This was a later one. I think this was like the second one, doesn't matter. But you have the whole one eye piece going on there as well. So it's something that is in the fabric of this culture. And so let's look at this as an important understanding of that. Okay, two things. The Dajjal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established for us through the life model of Prophet Muhammad, the message that we have from Prophet Muhammad, that the Dajjal is a reality, right? And this is established long before any of these movies that we're talking about. This that such is a reality. That this is a real. I'm just going to say a real thing, a real thing. And so the fact that it comes into existence and comes into currency and comes into the cultural system, and the way that it functions in the cultural system is also true to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed it as being, is important for us to understand. And so the need to recognize the Dajjal in real concrete terms, and not misidentify the Dajjal is very important, because the main thing that in one of the movies, Usual Suspects, it says Satan's greatest victory was to convince people that there is no Satan. So the Dajjal is something in particular. Now, in practical, real, actual, how does or how should it matter to me terms, I want to say this for you so that you can grasp it. So the Dajjal has one eye, right? The idea of is one eye. But remember, words, the sound of words, wordplay is critical for, well, everything. Facility with language. I was listening to something with regard to the Wright brothers, and the role that reading and the role that language played in their unique work is very, very critical. It's just a reminder of the power, the force, the significance, the importance of language. And language, of course, is a multi-dimensional aspect of it. I haven't memorized them, but I remember in part that vocabulary, there are at least four types of vocabulary. There's the reading vocabulary, there's the hearing vocabulary, there's the speaking vocabulary, and there's one that I'm missing, meaning that, the writing vocabulary. You can do, there are words for which we could do all four of those things, and there are also words that we might not be able to do all of them, right? Let's take, for example, hors d'oeuvres. I always have fun with myself on that. Hors d'oeuvres, right? It's like, can you spell hors d'oeuvres? When you see it somewhere, can you read it? Right? And when you read it, can you spell it? Can you say it? And do you know what it means? All right. So there's a vocabulary where you know what things mean, but you can't spell them, etc. Any case, hors d'oeuvres. So for many years, I would say when I would see that word, horse divorce. Horse divorce. It's like, oh, that's hors d'oeuvres, right? So we have these different vocabulary. All right. So now when you move beyond just literacy, which is that's what I was just talking about. I was just talking about just literacy, your writing vocabulary, reading vocabulary, your hearing vocabulary, and whichever the other is. But now when you get past that, now you start thinking about the sounds of words, and you think about the kinds of uh, wordplay and symbol system that is beyond the common mind, where the Imam has told us, and we repeat, that you read words in this, they say of English, that English, some people say English is a bastard language. Better said, that it is a constructed language. It's a language that's constructed to serve the people who created it. There was a movie, doesn't matter because I don't want to invite you to go see it anyway. There's a parent speaking with his children, and the idea is, I guess that's why it escapes my mind right now. The idea is that it's under Esperanza. That was point inside of his in there. They were traveling on a road trip, and they could speak many languages. But at one point, when the children were getting upset with him, they would start speaking Esperanza to each other, between themselves. Right? Say no Esperanza. Esperanza, I believe that's the name of it, the Esperanza. So this Esperanza itself is a modern, quote unquote, created language. I don't know who speaks it, but it is a created language in recent times that's created and is actually spoken by people who learn it. So similarly, when languages get constructed, those languages are constructed to carry the ideas of the people who constructed the language. Okay, well, the English language, especially the American English, is constructed for the purpose of carrying ideas, all right? Ideas that you have to be taught to know that side, the code for that language, right? So just let's go with this idea, right? So we talk about I, I, and then idea. When you look at idea, IDEA, for my own conscience, I have to tell you, this is so very important, because there's a mile or two down this road that we're walking. We'll inshallah, we'll be able to get to, because you want to understand Shaitan. This is a Satan, hypocrites, history, and the word of God is where this conversation, this journey started months ago, with the intention of, look, we need to be able to put our finger on the Shaitan. When I say put it on the Shaitan, we know we can't literally do that, but to fight against the works of Shaitan, you have to be able to identify his footprints. You have to be able to identify. There's science to what I just said. You have to be able to identify that. The Samiri, something about the footprint, and the Samiri in the Quran. Think about that. But we can't deal with all that right away. So let's stay with this. So now we're looking at the construction of the language, right? So we started off talking about I, right? So you have the I, right? Okay, then we have this idea. You have this word, idea, right? Break it up. Break up idea. IDEA. What is that? ID, right? So number one, identification, right? And show me some ID, right? Show me some ID. So you talk about identification. That's one. This is just scraping off the surface. Okay. So then what is EA? Each. But just don't stay with the ID part. That came right away. For this connection, idea, you're breaking IDEA. What's ID? Id. Eid, not Eid like our Eid, but it is definitely related. Id. So what is id? In the parlance of fraud, pardon me, Freud, in the parlance of fraud, id is your impulses. Id is your impulses, right? Now, Quran 4:119, it's a very, very important verse to understand the way that Shaitan operates. I will create in them false desires. So what is the Eid? Eid is impulses. So I will manipulate them in their impulses. That's what ID is. ID is impulses. Eid, impulses. EA is each impulse. It is true that an idea, say, oh, I have some idea of it. So that's really just an urge. That's just an impulse. You don't have the details. It's like a feeling. I have some, and others people in other parlance it says, you have no idea, right? You also hear that same meaning in you don't even have an inkling of this. So inklings, ideas, impulses, urges, Eid. See, Eid represents those that psychoanalytic vernacular, it represents urges and impulses that you have, which can be translated into the jinn. It can be translated. It can be translated and it can be transformed into the jinn because people get manipulated by their impulses. They get manipulated when those impulses are not under their control. When your impulses are not under your control, and then someone is able to, we talked about entertainment and we're talking about entertainment. Entertainment means getting into your subjectivity. That's what it means. Getting into yourself. What do you mean? Your subjectivity, your subjective mind. Getting into your subjective mind. When you watch movies, when you listen to music, when you engage in entertainment, you do this suspension of critique. You don't critique. You don't criticize. I know some of you with those. I don't do it with my wife anymore. That is, oh, look at that, that means this, and look at that, that means that, look at that, that means that. You can't even quote unquote enjoy the movie. Others, I enjoy it that way when I do that, but you can't enjoy the movie if you're critiquing all the way through the movie, unless that's your entertainment. But you're different. The masses of people who are engaged with it, they're just engaging it by what's called suspension of disbelief. You just suspend your disbelief and then you just allow it to come in. Okay, well then when it comes in, it enters into your subjectivity and that makes you a subject. You think that's the subject. No, you're the subject. You're the subject of the movie. And the director and the producer, mainly the director, however, the writer writes what they write, the screenwriter, the script writer, they do what they do. Then the director brings it to life by how they deal with the symbols, the icons, the indexes, the semiotics of the movie. Then it's artwork. But understand the role of the role and the object of the art is to get into your subjectivity and transform you in some kind of way such that you won't be the same person when you go out that you were when you went in, if they're successful in the operation that their movie or entertainment represents. It's serious psychological business. So idea is each impulse. That's what it is, each impulse, right? So we'll have to wait for later to talk about what that means in the larger scheme of it. I'm going to stay with the one eye thing right here, but in the larger picture, what I just told you is the heart of it. Shaitan. Let me give you hadith. I want you to be clear that this is connected. Our way of life has already told us the answers to this, but in abstract ways, and that's something that I'm trying to communicate more so that we better understand that what we're given in abstracts. Then you have to unpack the abstract in order to be able to get the meaning. The meaning is inside, like a walnut in a shell. The meaning is inside. The walnut is abstract. The meat is the concrete. The meat is the wisdom, right? So it's just interesting, I mean, how much a walnut looks like a brain, and two lobes, and they also call you nuts when your brain is not right. All right, and that bark on the walnut, since we're there, that bark on the walnut is really a type of the neocortex. Cortex means bark, right? And then you have to start talking about dogs and the way that they manipulate us in the society. Let's go back to idea. Okay, idea. What I want to focus on is ideology. Let's do that. Ideology. So idea. So this is all connected with the Dajjal. Trust this. There's somebody that's working on building up their multiplicity of Dajjals, right? You're going to see them when election time comes up. They're being fed an ideology right now, being wound up to be turned loose during the upcoming election cycle for 2024. I just saw a part of the movie, whatever, Return of the Mummy. And in one of the scenes, the mummy who has returned after being brought back to life, the mummy was able to get the water, and he was able to conjure up the force of the water, and you could see an image of his face in the water, and he was using that water to flood the people that he deemed to be his enemy. That's what's happening right now. The conjuring of this kind of find the little short clips about mass psychosis. You need to know that. That's the world that we're in. Yeah, and even this, I saw the Kingsman, the recent Kingsman. It ends with the punchline of one of the greatest conjurers. They had one of the greatest conjurers inside the movie at the beginning, and then they also had the ending conjurer at the end, someone who is also known infamously in history as one who's able to do that with masses, a whole country. He rallied a whole nation into that mass psychosis. And if you don't make the connection between that as a phenomena, a feature of history that can be repeated, there's nothing about life, the life of human beings, and we have no guarantees from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these things cannot repeat themselves in our time. You need to know that. But I want you to understand, it's all under ideology. It's under ideology. And it is this ideology that's always being presented. The Matrix, especially this one right now, it is promoting the present ideology that is being pushed in the world to make something abnormal normal. It's put to that purpose. Don't think it's just entertainment. That's how Shaitan, that's what we're talking about, the boogeyman, right? Don't think it's just entertainment. It is entertainment, but not quote unquote just entertainment. Yeah, relax, take a break. You work too hard, blah blah blah. Go have some entertainment. Entertainment nowadays is an it has always been an operation to enter into the subjectivity and manipulate the conscience of the people so that it will line up with the plans of those who are generating the entertainment. You need to know that, brother and sister. All right. So critical. So the point here is to understand that when we talk about the Dajjal, don't go looking for some beast looking like this little cartoon character right here, or even like the devil with the red suit and the horns and da. Don't look for that. Look for ideology. Look for ideology. Okay. What is ideology? The logic. First, you start with an idea, right? What is an idea? Idea is each urge or each impulse but the big idea. So you have some ideas that are big. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do this because there was something that said, "Don't do that, don't do that." It said, well, no, it keeps coming up, and with that language, the big idea. Y'all, hang on for a second. Listen to the Deadly Deceiver while I find this thing right here. All right. So, alhamdulillah. So, mashallah, Blog Talk, obviously you can't see it unless you're on both platforms. This is the concluding creature that comes up in the movie Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad. So this starfish character, right? Those of you who are interested in leadership and understanding power in leadership, one of the things you should study is the starfish and the spider. Imam Oliver Muhammad introduced that to me a couple of years ago. Actually, maybe even a few years ago. Time flies so well. But the starfish and the spider. The starfish is a more powerful, according to that thesis, a more powerful means of leadership and more difficult to undermine because it's decentralized. Whole nother story. But so you see the eye. Oh, this is the monster. It was like underground, whatever. It came out, Suicide Squad, boom, boom, boom. And so then the eye, what happens is that all these little starfish come from but under the arm of this giant starfish, and it's in alien fashion. If you have happened to see that movie where it sucks into your face. So now everybody's got this one eye. And so when this one eye speaks, it speaks through everybody else, very much like the Matrix. The Matrix speaks through everyone that is connected with it, or the agents can come through everyone that's connected, which is the same thing as culture. All this is saying is culture, right? So everybody only sees what the quote unquote, the big I. And so going back to language again, the big I. So big I, big guy, right? The big I. So the big guy is the I. The big I is the I that everybody sees through. All right. So once I'm in charge, I give you your vision, I give you your perception, I give you your worldview, then I'm in charge of you. And that's the Dajjal. That's the Dajjal. So this can be taken as a symbol of the Dajjal as well, and how the Dajjal also influences everybody else. Nobody else sees what they see individually, personally, autonomously, independently. No, you only see what the Dajjal shows you, and you only see it through one eye. And that's what happens with ideology. With ideology, people who guide their life, quote unquote, we'll call it guide, who live their life on the basis of ideology, are individuals who are quote unquote singular focused. They don't have a depth perception, right? And even in this Kingsman piece, these two individuals who are supposedly enemies of each other. I'm talking about the end of the movie. I'm talking about when you think the credits are supposed to be rolling, and then they come back and then they show you something else. So they have these two characters, and actually it's communism and nationalism, something like that. Those two are introduced by the same person as being to act in a role as being enemies of each other. And the Imam explained to us, it's like you look, left hand and the right hand. You think two things might be opposing each other, but when in actuality they are actually two hands on the same body. And you get that message also at the end of it. So ideology, and both of them represent ideology, right? So the idea is to understand the role that ideology plays in mastering and managing and manipulating people. That is how Shaitan manages the society, through ideology. Through ideology. And if you don't have the ability to think and to reason, let me say this also before I go. So this starfish here, the movie is Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad, the main girl is that girl, whatever that girl's name is. She carries the bat around. I don't know what her name is right now. But on her little saying is "Daddy's little monster." Daddy's little monster. Right. She has a tattoo that you can see, and then also other places you see her image that have, Daddy's little monster. Now, every one of the people in the Suicide Squad who are the members of the Suicide Squad, it's like a corruption of, if I can say that, of the Dirty Dozen. You know what I'm saying? Some of you, I know you old enough to remember those things. The Dirty Dozen, right? It's like, or even the Magnificent Seven, what have you. It's like each one of them had their thing, right? The Dirty Dozen, each one of them had their thing. The Magnificent Seven, each one of them had their thing, right? Suicide Squad, each one of them has their thing. But the primary, the largest, most outstanding thing, i.e. malady, pathology, etc., with each one of them is they have problems with their parents. Either you had a problem with your father, or you had a problem with your mother, you had a problem with the parents. So the parents are the source of this madness, right? And then when you talk about suicide, mashallah, you know how it happens. Suicide. What is suicide? Suicide is killing yourself. That's what suicide is. Killing yourself, right? Is that not what Shaitan is trying to get you to do? Kill yourself, right? Hannibal the Cannibal. Anybody who knows about him, that's that Hannibal Lecter character. It's really something too. That so let's get away from this. So those people are given to ideology, right? They are opposed to religion. They're opposed to religion. And the distinction between religion and an ideology is that ideology takes a single focus. This is the idea. Ideology takes a single focus that is extreme, while religion is balanced in its representations, and it always includes a role for the benevolence of nature. You'll find that many ideologies are actually attempts to substitute and replace religion. What does communism say? Religion is the opiate of the people. Religion is the opiate of the people. People say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Religion is the enemy, right? Religion is the enemy to the Dajjal and those who are carrying out its will. And in their attempts to substitute or replace religion, they always fail. That is, those ideologies, they always fail because they don't hold nature in sacred esteem. Meaning that you can look at a lot of things that you can. Capitalism. Let's take capitalism as an ideology, right? It's like, so it's the ideology. So it's just that, whatever it might be. You can call it free enterprise, or you can call it private property. You can call it the profit motive. You talk about all those things, right? And if you take the time to study those things, just really almost superficially, when you look at, where is its origins, what is it talking, you'll see that it disrespects or lies about or disregards God and nature. I mean, all of them. Communism, capitalism, even though we have "In God We Trust" on our money, look at how capitalism operates. Look at what undergirds. Look at the ideologies that undergird the different schools of economics, et cetera, et cetera. How many of them take nature and how can you say? They talk about the laws of nature and nature's God. They talk about not these ideologies that I'm talking about. I'm talking about this. This is language that you hear in our environment. It is not respected. Human nature is not respected in capitalism, and so the invisible hand, that whole Adam Smith lie, right? John Locke and these are big names as it relates to economy, as it relates to wealth in this world. And when you dig beneath it, I'll send you somewhere you can get some details on this. Zeitgeist, whatever the latest Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist. You can get it free on YouTube. Go through that and then just go about 1/3 of the way through it and talk about money and the economy, and you can get details on what I'm stumbling over right now. All of this is to say the threat to our lives, our peace, etc., in this society is ideology in the worst sense. Ideology functionally is critical in terms of the logic of the idea, but it depends on which ideas logic are you following, right? So it's going to happen naturally. There's ideas, there's ideology, etc. All right. They're good ideas and they're bad ideas. But if somebody takes a bad idea and they build an ideology around it, and then they institutionalize that ideology, which is born of a bad idea, that's trouble for the society that we're in. There's this woman, Abramovich, whatever. Beware, but look, and you'll see what I'm saying. You may find something. A modern artist, Abramovich. That's what I'm talking. Ayn Rand, AYNRAND. That's another one. These are people who formulate ideologies that the quote unquote legislators and others in positions of power follow, and they institutionalize, they implement, and they sell and they promote this this little star character right here. All these little eyes came from under the armpits of this creature right here. Just they shoot out like little whatever bullets, whatever you want to call it. Where's the armpit? The armpit is just funky. It's the place where they some horrible slang about some of these countries that have been exploited by the powers that we're speaking of. It's the armpit of the Middle East, or it's the armpit of Africa, etc. To just say that it's just corruption. To say it's corruption. So it's from the corruption in the ideology that dominates people's worldview, and that creates the kind of hells in the various places in the world. This is what is happening in those places. There's an Zionism ideology, atheism ideology, right? And it does not respect the role of, it doesn't respect human nature. It doesn't respect human destiny, human purpose, human potential. It doesn't respect or include or incorporate that there is a God. I'm talking about ideology. You know that Shaitan, he says, "I fear God." This is in the Quran, right? So it's the people who get ideology and promote that ideology who are actually the agents of the Shaitan, who he's trying to use or using as proof that human nature can't be trusted. Human nature is weak. Human nature is putrid. Human nature is something to be disregarded. That's what you have in these ideologies. These ideologies, these rainbow ideologies right now, that is ruling something of the airwaves. The idea is that, what's natural, what's normal, what's the plan, what's all these social constructs and blah, blah, blah. All of this undermining, the intention is to undermine nature and to undermine faith in God, in his reality, right? So that's all of this is at work. So we'll wind down here. Ideology is an attempt to substitute or replace religion. They always fail because they don't hold nature in sacred esteem. So in every, I say apply the 4 birds in my slide there. In every one of those. So in business, you can have ideologies that subordinate or disregard, or deem to be irrelevant the idea of God and human nature. Pardon me. Same thing in governance. Same thing. They either lie on the human nature. So the idea, like governance, for example, when people decide where are we going to spend our funds, okay? Decisions being made on lies about God, lies about human nature, which deprive human beings of what they have a right to as human beings. But they lay it on some rule of nature that, since there's nothing that we can do to change this about human beings, it's a waste of time and money to invest in trying to ameliorate this condition, because it's just natural, because it's a part of the human condition. There are certain people that you can't help, you can't change, you can't transform. They're just that way. And so it's against our understanding of nature. While they don't say it that way, but they act that way. Some may say it that way. It's natural. So that's their lie against nature. And upon the lie against nature, that ideology, then they act on that lie, which deprives the human beings who need the benefit of a quote unquote a better choice, a more appropriate response to their condition. Then they die and they lose lose their life, they lose their livelihood, they lose their human existence. What? That's the act of Shaitan coming through the ideology that lies on God and human nature, as racism does. Right? All right. So, well, that's how far we got today. So, inshallah, we'll get to this. All this happened in relationship to a conversation that took place, which is the core conversation to the movie Simone. And this is like almost like the last act. I have one more thing that I'm going to show, inshallah, from this. But as you see, I will say this as a starting point for next. So the idea that he was carrying this film, I haven't bothered with the numbers there. Carrying the film, the big thing that stood out for me is the sunrise sunset. The sunrise sunset, the name of that movie, and they spent time and focus on that. So that's a part of the symbolism of the indexes that they were laying down. So let's call it breadcrumbs, that they were signaling to those who may know that, okay, this is important too. The sunrise, the one-eyed thing, and the sunrise sunset. And inshallah next week we'll get to that. And of course, as I'm giving you the note right there, false worship is sun worship, and we're going to talk about that inshallah then. I pray Allah that we've been of some benefit to you today.
90 seconds.
And we're about to check out. I'll give a couple of these notations from my friends, brothers, and sisters online. Let's see what we got here. Alhamdulillah. Oh, those of you on Blog Talk, of course, is going to go on about 69 seconds. If you have a comment, you can push one on your phone. I'm looking at the studio now, so if you have a comment, you can do that. Punch it up, and I'll open up the line for you. Alhamdulillah, thank all of you regulars who are making a contribution. Okay, Lydia Wu said, makes sense. Interesting when each word has its own hidden meaning. Maybe they've been doing things in obvious ways and yet clueless people just enjoying it without knowing anything. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the case. That's the reality of it. Alhamdulillah, Taysir, alhamdulillah, said, looks what this ideology is producing now. Look at the stink and the trash in the streets. No regard for humanity. Absolutely. It's horrible. And most of our lives, it's like, man, when you get to our neighborhoods, when you start seeing the blight, unfortunately, this is that part of the neighborhood. MashaAllah. May Allah guide us and protect us. Alhamdulillah, the all-seeing eye. DIA, incredible. Okay. You missed me on the DIA, Ali Jihad. DIA, inshallah. Let us know. Throw something up before we close out if there's a detail that I'm missing. All right. Alhamdulillah. We appreciate it all, one and all. May Allah guide us to the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.